Hello, welcome to Joie de Vivre. So today's topic of discussion is self-care just another way to fail? Well, in our excessively individualistic, capitalistic world that we live in, or culture, I would say for those of us living in the US especially, there are so many ways to fail, right? I mean, if you're not making it, and a lot of people are really struggling these days, then of course the onus is on you because obviously you did something wrong, right? There's nothing wrong with the system. And I say this because of course these are the messages that we receive in this extremely individualistic culture that we're in, that if you're not killing it in whatever department that is, a lot of times it's making a living, but could be relationships, it could be so many things, but the message is it's your fault. Okay. It's not true in other cultures, but that is certainly true here. And self-care has become just another way that people are struggling because there is some messaging that, well, you know, if you're burning out, for example, then you must be doing self-care wrong. If you're suffering from chronic stress, then obviously it's your fault. It's a you problem. So I'm here to dispel that myth. And if there's any part of your mind that does believe that that's true, that's what this discussion is about. And this might actually end up being a couple of different videos because when I was exploring this topic, I really started to see just how deep some of the messaging goes and really what's required to turn it upside down or turn it around. So there's the famous Audre Lorde quote, of course, made by Ms. Lorde, who was a Black queer feminist. And she made this very powerful statement, which is that self-care is not self-indulgence, it's self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. Very powerful statement from a specifically Black queer woman, right, who has been oppressed in numerous ways, because of who she was. And so she made this very powerful statement, and it is, in fact, very powerful if we are able to apply it. And there is this radical feminist idea that if there is more care in this capitalistic society, it will counterbalance all the harm that is done in this system that we live in. I happen to believe that that's true. However, what has happened with self-care is that has been absorbed into the capitalistic culture in a way that it's become a part of consumerism. It's become a huge money-making industry, the self-care and wellness industry. And I don't think that's all bad, meaning I don't think it's all bad that there's an industry based in self-care and wellness. However, a lot of times there's a misunderstanding about what you can get from what's being offered. A lot of the ways self-care gets sold to us nowadays is as either discrete activities, like a yoga class, or items for sale, such as, creams or essential oils or candles or what have you. So again, nothing wrong with money being a means of exchange. And in this culture, okay, if you want a scented candle, you're going to pay some money for it. Okay, but there's a bigger problem here, which is in our culture, the way consumer culture has developed, we've also gotten very much into this quick fix economy. So it's the quick dopamine hit. It's, the scented candle is going to fix my mood right now, and that's going to make me feel better. But that doesn't solve the deeper issues, right? So again, we're looking for a quick fix. There it is. It pops up on Amazon, the magical essential oil candle that's going to, put you in a beautiful, blissful mood any hour of the day, and click buy. There it is. It shows up at your doorstep the next day. And so these forms of self-care just become commodified goods and services like anything else, using the same ploys to sell them to you. You're feeling a certain way, anxious, depressed in a moment. What's going to make me feel better? Quickly click, buy, there it is. Now, the same is somewhat true of yoga class, meditation, in that these things are great. I mean, yoga and meditation can be really amazing for the body and soul. But unfortunately, again, in our world in which productivity is king, these activities just become more things to pile onto your schedule. I mean, if you're burnt out, if you're already feeling overloaded, if you have way too many things you have to do in a day, how are you going to make it to a yoga class? Even if that's could be the thing that heals you. And I mean, and that's a tall order for a yoga class, right? But a yoga practice, a regular yoga practice, might be more in reach for someone who is middle class, has disposable income, who, can have kids, someone watch the kids while they're doing the class. But even if it's accessible to you, again, so many of us we're strapped, right? We're maybe we're working long hours, maybe we're raising kids, maybe we're looking after aging parents, maybe we just have a lot of responsibilities, various kinds. And so in our busy world, it becomes just another thing to put on the to-do list, another task to check off, another thing. And we bliss out for maybe 45 minutes, and then everything comes back, all the stressors. The to-do list returns with full force. It's not like, again, it's not like the deeper issues are helped, are healed. So again, we have like these packaged, commodified versions of self-care that get sold to us as ways to heal ourselves from this toxic capitalistic culture. And surprise, it doesn't work. Even if you can get to 3.5 yoga classes in a week, you can still be very burnt out because that's not the cure, right? It's not the cure for the system that's hurting you. So then what do we do? How do we actually, if we're going to try to heal ourselves or take care of ourselves within this system, how do we do that? And, if we come back to the Audre Lorde quote, she's not talking about bubble baths, you know? She's not talking about essential oils, or maybe she went to a yoga class, I don't know, but I don't think that's what she's talking about. I think she's talking about an approach to life. I think she's talking about how do we actually care for ourselves in a deep way, and in so doing, care for others as well. We have to care for ourselves first. But how do we do that? Because it's not yoga. It's not, I mean, yoga can be a piece of it. I'm all for people who have amazing yoga practices. It can be a really beautiful, grounding thing that, again, that is great for your body and your soul. Ditto for meditation. However, when we're looking at these things as discrete activities on the to-do list, and then once we leave the yoga class or we stop the meditation, we jump back into productivity, then it hasn't really solved the problem, because the problem is excessive productivity. That is one of the problems. The problem is feeling that we have to be doing all these things all the time. So self-care really requires doing an assessment, an evaluation, first of all, of your life. And so when I'm talking about the system is to blame, because I do think there is a system that is creating the problems, from the Audre Lorde perspective, she's making an empowering statement. She's saying there is a system, a very problematic system. There are institutions that oppress me, but I'm going to empower myself to take care of myself. And so there is a a daring aspect of it. And the daring is to set boundaries. That's one thing. And that's just one thing. But one thing is to dare to set boundaries, to dare to ask for what you need. In other words, it takes a little bit of courage to just not toe the line, to not just fall in line and continue to do what you're doing to yourself. It takes a little courage and a little daring to say no to, and that means perhaps asking what you need from your employer. And, worst case, if that employer cannot deliver what you need, then that means needing to find something else, finding another way. So self-care actually is a bigger process, perhaps, and even a learning curve, I would say, of taking care of ourselves. And another one is a lot of us really treat ourselves poorly. You could say, well, we treat ourselves the way the system treats us, or we allow ourselves to be treated a certain way because we don't know any better, never learned how. So we do have to learn how to treat ourselves well. And that means self-compassion, right? That means not beating ourselves up for not doing more or better, because a lot of us fall into that trap. So self-care is also self-compassion. It's also giving yourself grace, giving yourself leeway. It's giving yourself breaks. It's allowing yourself to call in sick if you need to. Take that sick day when you need to. And a sick day, again, is not gonna cure the problem, but it's a way for you to take your power back and to say, this is what I need. And if you're in an environment that's not honoring what you need right now, even if you've asked for it, then you have to find ways to get it anyway, you know? So self-care really is a process, and it's a learning curve. It's something we haven't all been taught. Many of us haven't been taught at all. It's not going to be solved by, detox in a box. And the bigger part of this really is it is making some difficult choices when it comes to the world we're living in. It means being courageous enough to say no to the status quo and maybe to make some decisions that are unpopular, maybe with friends or a family even. But and it may mean making choices for yourself that that result in giving up a fantasy, let's say, that you've had about what you might be able to achieve. A lot of us have goals and dreams and expectations for ourselves, and that's a wonderful thing. But if we're finding that the way we're going about achieving the goals, or maybe the goal itself is at odds with who we are, and we're suffering and we're struggling and we're burning out and we're miserable, then it might be time to reassess, reevaluate the goals, reevaluate the dreams, and check the fantasies and see if there's really any reality there, or if it's just something that we're making up in our heads as this is what I want to have, the big house and the 3 cars. And maybe we don't have to do all that. Maybe a small house and 1 car is enough if we also have peace of mind. So I'm saying there's a lot of questioning that's involved here in the self-care process. It's not just about going to a yoga class. By all means, go to a yoga class. But at the end of the day, it's about questioning our values and our priorities. And it's about really, really taking true care of ourselves in an Audre Lorde sort of a way. So something to think about. Not saying you have to turn your life upside down today in order to care for yourself, but it's really just a thought question, just to begin to reflect. What might taking better care of yourself look like? What might that look like for you? And it could even be a journaling exercise where you could sit down and sort of think about, how it would feel to really take care of yourself and what that might look like in your daily life. Maybe you might have to give up some activities that you do, but if your soul were rested, if you felt rested, might that not be worth it, at least for the short term? So I would love to know what you think about all this. Feel free to leave comments below in the box below. I would really love to hear from you. And again, this might be one of many on self-care because it is such a buzzword, a buzz term in our culture right now. And again, many of us we're just not able to get there in the way that society has defined it for us. And so it might be time for us to redefine it. So thanks for listening. And I hope to see you next time I'm here. All right. Have a wonderful week.